Vice President Kamala Harris and Donald Trump are in a dead heat, according to recent polls. But there are some groups where Harris holds a significant advantage over Trump, in particular, younger voters. They could have an enormous impact on who wins this election. And in 2020, they sure did, voting in record numbers. So I wanted to hear what is motivating them this election. So I went to my home state of New Jersey, Rutgers University, and talked to several students. And since most of them are voting for president for the very first time, they could be part of this group who ultimately decides who wins this election. And I asked how they're feeling about having that awesome responsibility. Watch this.
Firstly, I'm super excited. Like, the first time to vote in any presidential election, and such a consequential election too.
There's just something about the aura of the presidential election that is heightened in ways in which I don't think we fully get to understand until we are able to cast our ballot, which I'm deeply excited for.
Yeah, coming from an immigrant family, I've been waiting for this moment for all my life. But I'd be lying if I didn't say I was a little nervous too. Maybe it's the politics, the polarization, everything that's going on in the media, but I'm a little nervous to see what's going to happen.
Do you think other people your age are engaged?
I would say yes, more than usual. I think that a lot of people have been tuned into this election, especially because it has been so unprecedented.
Do you have peers who were not at all engaged or had no plans to vote 6 months ago, and now they've changed their mind?
I definitely do. I definitely have been talking to a lot of my friends about the presidential election, really trying to encourage them to vote. But I think that before President Biden stepped aside and Vice President Kamala Harris really took the wheel with the Democratic Party, there were a lot of people in my life, in my friend group, who were really adamant to not vote because they really felt like none of the candidates were representing them. Both of them were, as a lot of people say, like two old men. And I think that now having a new candidate, a lot of young voters, especially a lot of women, have been reinvigorated to kind of show up and to vote, even if they're not political science students.
Do you think everybody feels comfortable, and I'm not asking you who you're voting, but even in your friend group, in your social group, do people feel comfortable saying who they're voting for?
It's a toss-up. It's really 50-50 because admitting your true feelings about politics, especially in this environment, it's scary, it's polarizing.
Is it harder for young people on a college campus to say if they're going to support Donald Trump?
Oh, absolutely. I think especially in a place like New Jersey and Rutgers, where there are a lot of progressive people here, I think it can really be kind of scary to admit who you want to vote for, especially if it is for former President Donald Trump.
I think there's a little bit of trepidation in what you say, and also in the new social media age where you know that in one instance anyone could be recording you and then that gets blasted online. So it's not only your fellow peers that you might be ostracizing, but it could be the whole world.
I see both of you nodding.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think that on college campuses, there definitely is a danger of there being sort of an ideological echo chamber, and people who are more conservative might not feel comfortable at all voicing their opinions in class or even with their friends. I have seen that break up friendships, and I think that it definitely is a shame that we aren't able to have more political conversations, but I think it definitely does vary by region.
What are your thoughts about the choices you have?
I think earlier when I said I was nervous, this is why. I don't think either candidate really inspires a ton of confidence, for me at least.
Why?
Well, one, the former President Donald Trump just doesn't I don't judge him as a great leader, and I don't feel like Vice President Kamala Harris has a track record that really speaks for itself, especially compared to past elections.
When you think about what qualities you look for in a leader, do you see those qualities in either candidate?
Neither candidate is my first choice. I definitely do think that Kamala Harris embodies more of the leadership qualities that I want in a leader than former President Donald Trump. I think that there is a lot of harmful rhetoric that's going on the internet coming from his side, and I think that there isn't enough decorum from him as there is from Kamala Harris.
I think oftentimes we've kind of made the race strictly about the person, and it's, an attack on one of the candidates' characters. And for me, as a voter, something that I'd like to see more coming from the candidates is having a policy race.
Does the average voter take the time to learn about policy?
I think I could be, but I think it just depends on how you phrase it. So when I'm talking to my friends, I'm not like, oh, well, what policy is most important to you? I think of them as a person first and a voter second. So I'm talking to them more as, you know, well, what's going on in your life? Like, what struggles are you having? What do you want to see differently? And then kind of that's how you can navigate towards a specific campaign or a candidate.
What's the biggest issue driving you when it comes to vote?
LGBTQ plus rights and trans rights, as well as reproductive rights.
I would say access to healthcare. I think healthcare is something that kind of gets lost in the conversation a lot.
Immigration. Our immigration system needs reform. I think right now we do need legal pathways for undocumented immigrants, but also like immigrants who are here on visas as well.
I think for me, it has to be the economy. We're all seniors, we're about to graduate, enter the job market, and we have to start paying for things like gas, rent, utilities, and trying to sort out how that's going to work. And the fact that I have no idea where I'm going to live a year from now, these are scary considerations. And so it's really important for me that I have a president that considers them.
Are you and your classmates hearing from candidates?
I think in terms of text messages or like anything like that, like direct communication with young people, I have not received anything. But I think on social media, that's where we see a lot more. So we'll see a lot of like ads from both the Trump and Harris campaign. But at least from what I see, it's more like asking for donations and like volunteer hours targeted for young people. But I haven't seen any sort of like communication trying to like say like, here are our policy initiatives or here are our goals.
I think there really isn't as much focus on young people in New Jersey and in other states that aren't considered battleground states. And I think that that is definitely something that both candidates need to prioritize more because, again, youth don't really tend to vote in high numbers compared to other age groups. So I think it is really important not just to target battleground states, but to target young people across the country.
What candidate or what campaign do you think is better at social media?
Me? The Harris campaign, easily.
Why?
Over the summer, I mean, silly little things like the brat sort of like trend, that got so much attention for the Harris campaign. And like, having celebrities come out and start a trend online, it's really like astounding to see like how even something so small and so silly is able to like reel in all these different like young people.
I think Vice President Harris's campaign has been incredible online. They have invested in getting Gen Z campaigners on their social media accounts. I think that has been very personable to us, and we're able to relate to it. Gets us excited.
When you just want to be informed about the state of the race, about the two candidates and their platforms, where do you go? Where do you get that information?
If I'm trying to seek it out, it's reading the news, but oftentimes social media, I'm not seeking it out. It just appears on my screen, and it's not whether I'm asking for it or not. It comes up on my feed.
I think that there definitely is a danger of social media posts kind of creating ideological echo chambers and kind of rage baiting. So I definitely do fall into those sometimes, seeing one-liners or very inflammatory things in social media and believing them. But I think that I have to take a step back during those times and realize that not everything on the internet is true and that I have to do my research first.